Hi again, and welcome to the fourth module of my strategic planning masterclass. This is where we actually get a view of the overall strategic planning process. And in subsequent modules, we'll be looking at more detail at the subsections of this process. So here it is. It's a 7-step process. There may be the temptation to skip some of the steps. You do so at your peril. Invariably, I've found you need to come back and relook at something if you've skipped it or haven't done it well enough. So sometimes they might not take you very long. Maybe it's just a few meetings or a few hours, but make sure you do the thinking and follow these steps in sequence. So what are the 7 steps? Firstly, makes sense to do the initiation, proper project management, proper planning. This is when you need to get the project team together. You have the sponsor, usually the sponsor is the CEO, and with the strategic planner being the project manager. Could be one of the other directors in the company. But get that project team together, make sure everybody's very clear on what their roles are, how much time you have, how much resource that you have. We'll come back to this a little bit later in this module. The second step, the foundation. You heard me say it before, this is critical. If you haven't set your values, vision, and mission, stop what you're doing, stop this training masterclass, look at setting up your values, vision, and mission framework. This is the prerogative of the leadership team, but critical that's in place. It shouldn't change very often, but it makes sense when you're running a strategic plan to relook at it, reaffirm it, make sure it's still relevant and valid. The third step, this is where it gets fun. This is where you start to do the diagnosis, both the external and the internal, and include people from all across the organization, a proper wider team workshop or workshops. Bigger organizations will spend a lot of time and money, not just in the strategic planning process, but throughout the year, building up their external and internal knowledge. Then this is a good moment to relook at your value proposition in step 4. Validate your business model. Perhaps it needs to be evolved. Perhaps it needs to be improved. Again, get feedback from not just the executive team. Get input from folks who've been in the organization for a long time and perhaps aren't very senior, from people who've just joined the organization. This is an open, creative process. Make sure that you get the input from a wide and eclectic number of people. Okay, now we get on to the battlegrounds and ambitions in step 5. What are the challenges? What are the issues facing this company? How do you overcome them? What is the intent? You have all the information from the diagnosis and the value proposition workshops. I believe this is now the leadership team to bring it all together, to summarize and to clearly stipulate what the battlegrounds and the ambitions for those battlegrounds are. You don't want too many. Again, we're going to come to it in subsequent modules. Then you're in a position to establish your strategy. What are your pillars? Okay, what are your strategic thrusts? And then what are the specific actions or projects behind each strategic pillar? And then what are the KPIs, specific measurable metrics behind those projects? At this stage, you could also produce a picture, a scenario, or a forecast of what the business shape will be. You can do this both in a top-down or bottom-up way. And then finally, implement, finalize the presentation, make it look good, communicate it to the wider team. Make sure you don't divulge super sensitive information. Make sure the right information goes to the right people, but don't under-communicate. It is a bit of a cliche, but communication is incredibly important across the enterprise. And then execute it. Make sure you have a proper project management office set up. Make sure that each of your projects are managed well, and there's a regular feedback on how those projects are progressing. That's quite a long process, or can be a long process. You don't want it to be a never-ending story, and there is no one size that fits all. You should tailor this plan to suit your organization. What type of organization are you? Are you a big corporate? Are you a charity? Maybe you're a public sector. Depending on that, you may want to spend more time in certain sections. Maybe if it's a big organization, you need more time on the planning, getting more people involved, getting more buy-in. If you're very large versus a small company, you're not going to have the same amount of resource. You might have to pick people out of the sales team. They've only got a limited amount of time. They'll need to go back to their day jobs. So the size of the company is very important. How's the company been performing? What sort of trajectory is it on? Has it been flatlining? Is it in dynamic growth, or is it in decline? This will change how you approach your project and where your focus needs to be, and how you run that project. Look, the ambition is important. Are you super ambitious, or are you perhaps family-owned company and happy with your current size? Then it may just be a relook at your business plan, as opposed to completely looking how you're going to disrupt the industry. The culture, how do you go about doing things in your organization? How open are you? How do you share information? This is important to understand. That's important how you run this process. I mentioned resource available. I mention it again. Are you able to build a dedicated team? Do you have a dedicated strategic planning team, or is this just part of somebody else's remit? However you're structured, make sure you have the right amount of resource focused on the strategic plan at the right time and get the right team in place. In previous companies, I was fortunate to head up the strategic planning team. There were 4 or 5 of us in the team, and we essentially ran a full annualized strategic planning and budget process. The strategic plan would start in August with looking at the vision. We'd then do it top down, bottom up, and finalize. The 7-step processes were within those. And once we finished the strategic plan, we'd start again on the budget. So the strategic plan was for 3, sometimes 5 years. The budget process was just for that 1 year. We'd have key interaction points between the marketing teams and the commercial teams and the finance teams and other parts of the business at specific points within this planning cycle. Board meetings were set to discuss the findings, to give pushback, or to approve. I make the point again, the planning cycle must be bespoke to the company, along with the detail and the deadlines behind the individual processes. One slide briefly on the initiation, the planning, the project management. It is a big project. Deconstruct it and take it on piece by piece. It's incredibly important that you get the workshops in the diary from the beginning. It's incredibly important that you get a great project manager, and that you as a CEO, you need to sponsor it. Keep it democratic. Involve as many people in the diagnosis and the value proposition stages. Make sure you tap in to all the knowledge that you have within the organization. And that's it. That's the end of the 4th module. Hope you found it useful. In the next module, we'll be discussing the vision, mission, and values. See you then.